let's take a look at some of the top stories. Israel's cabinet, led by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, will meet today to discuss a plan to secure the release of all hostages held in Gaza, following a ceasefire and hostage agreement announced by U.S. President Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia has welcomed the Gaza ceasefire and expressed hope for a just and comprehensive peace. Meanwhile, Israel's far-right minister Bezalel Smotrich has announced that his religious Zionism party will vote against the Gaza ceasefire deal. Smotrich has urged the government to resume fighting after hostages are freed, rejecting any move towards Palestinian statehood or an international security force in Gaza. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that Ukrainian strikes may have cut Russian gasoline supplies by up to 1/5. He further added that Russian forces carried out 1,550 strikes on energy targets in Ukraine over the past month, while the US and Russia have no shared perspective on the war, according to him. The U.S. government shutdown enters its second week, while court hearings in Illinois and California will review President Donald Trump's National Guard deployments to Chicago and Portland, as governors and coalitions of 24 states challenge defederalization. French President Emmanuel Macron is seeking his sixth prime minister within the next 38 hours now. This follows after outgoing Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu resigned on Monday amid France's worst political crisis in modern history. South Sudan's President Salva Kiir has fired military chief Daw Turjong and reinstated his predecessor Paul Nang Majok just 3 months after dismissing him amid growing political turmoil and armed clashes. The shakeup comes as Kiir faces internal conflict, delayed elections, and the treason trial of his rival and first vice president, Riek Machar. An artillery strike by Sudan's Rapid Support Forces has killed 13 people and wounded 20 others inside a mosque in the besieged city of El Fasher, according to eyewitnesses quoted by media reports. Survivors have said the mosque has sheltered about 70 families when shells hit on Wednesday, destroying part of the building as well. Indian police have arrested G. Ranganathan, owner of Sun Pharma, after a cough syrup made at his plant was linked to the deaths of at least 21 children. Tests by Indian Health Ministry found that the syrup sold as Cold Riff contained dangerous levels of diethylene glycol, the same toxin behind killing of more than 130 children since 2022 in Gambia and Uzbekistan. Now, Israel's cabinet is set to meet today to discuss a plan to secure the release of all hostages in Gaza. Following the announcement of the first phase of the Gaza peace plan, the Prime Minister's office in Israel has confirmed that the deal will only take effect once approved by the cabinet. Meanwhile, the Israeli Defense Forces have stated that they are prepared to implement the agreement. The first phase of the deal includes the release of Israeli hostages and the withdrawal of IDF troops from certain areas. This agreement comes after global efforts to address the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza, as according to the United Nations, famine has been confirmed for the first time in Gaza. Several aid groups, including the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, are working to deliver essential supplies to Palestinian hospitals. The Freedom Flotilla carried over $110,000 worth of medical aid, including medicines and nutritional supplies. Now, joining us now is Adrian Bertel. He's a member and activist aboard the flotilla that was headed to Gaza. Joins us live from Paris. Thank you very much, Adrian, for joining us. Welcome to News6 World. What motivated you personally to join this voyage? What does this journey mean to you?
I think at first I was a victim of the Israeli propaganda and I didn't really know what was happening in Gaza. until I saw the videos on Instagram of the genocide happening, and I really needed to act. And that's when I answered an international call for first in June to march to Gaza from Egypt to ask the humanitarian aid to pass through Gaza. And we all gathered there in Egypt, and we walked one day, and we were stopped by the Egyptian forces. And that's where we realized we were all together and we could have an impact on what was happening in Gaza. And after coming back from Egypt, end of June, we decided to create this flotilla, the biggest flotilla that ever existed. And I was really involved in the organization, and I really wanted to participate because it's part of my humanity. I cannot be happy and watch while watching other people dying like that without doing anything. So it's mostly my humanity would force me to act.
Well, that's amazing. And Adrian, after the interception, how did you handle this danger and uncertainty that came with this mission?
So after the interception, I think during the interception, I was really shocked by how the Israeli forces intercepted us with so much humiliation. We had Greta Thunberg with us, and they took her by the hair. They really took pleasure into humiliating her. And I was really afraid at that time because I thought we will all go through that, and we all go through that, but not that much comparing to Greta. They wrote like insults on a t-shirts. They filmed her with the Israeli flag. And I was really, really impressed because all of them were really kind of brainwashed. I mean, we arrived 500 citizens of over the world, from all over the world, from 50 countries, in 50 boats, just with one message: to stop the genocide and to give food to the children of Gaza. And they couldn't even make sense of that. They were so, like, for us, it was such an evidence that we were just terrorists, that we were bringing weapons and drugs, that they just considered us as terrorists. And we were really afraid, and we got like difficult treatment. We were attached. We were put in cold chambers, and then in really difficult detention chambers. But we all were together, 500. We were really supportive to each other. We really helped each other, and the world was with us, especially in Spain, Italy, and Greece. There was a lot of mobilization that put a lot of pressure on their governments, that their turn put pressure on Israel to ask for our release.
And Adrian, now what kind of humanitarian aid or supplies were you taking to Gaza, and how did you ensure that? So was that aid taken when you guys were intercepted, or the boat was intercepted? Do you know if the aid reached the people in Gaza or not?
Unfortunately not. So we brought aid on all our boats, mostly food and a bit of medical support as well. And our plan was to deliver it to the people of Gaza, to some association in Gaza, because we don't trust a Zionist entity. Because now the food supply is managed by the Zionist entity, and it has been proven that it's death traps with only few delivery points, and there was some mass shooting at those points. So it was really clear to us that we will not give this aid to anyone but the people of Gaza. But to do that, we had to reach Gaza and break the illegal blockade, which was really difficult. So all the boats that were intercepted, most of them are still in the port in Israel, and some of them were deliberately sunk in the sea because it was just too many boats for them to maintain. But we're pretty sure the aid didn't reach Gaza, unfortunately, which is completely illegal because our mission was respecting international law. And unfortunately, Israel law they put it above international law, which is not normal and which is not acceptable. And it's really like our work as civilians, because the government are failing to do so or refuse to make international law be respected. It's our work as civilians to make international law be respected.
Thank you for sharing that. And Adrian, what do you think Gaza peace plan should prioritize, as people in Gaza still do not have access to enough aid?
So I've read a bit about it because I was disconnected last week because I didn't have any internet in the prison. And I hope the ceasefire will work. I hope the food delivery will work, but I won't call it a peace plan. It's an urgent plan. There is nothing about justice, and there will not be no peace without justice. Gaza has been completely destroyed. There's been more than 60,000 people dead. And there's no words about the West Bank. The West Bank has still been, Israel has still voted for an annexion of the West Bank, which is completely a colonial mentality. They are not hiding that there are settlers and colonies in Gaza and in West Bank. It is not normal. I won't call it a peace plan unless there is justice. So this is an urgency plan. I'm not really convinced about it, but I'm curious to see what's going to happen. But for sure, for us, as activists and as people of the world, the fight is not over, it's just starting. And we will not stop until Palestine will be completely free and will be able to elect their own government and have their own autonomy and sovereignty.
Yes, and with the new Gaza ceasefire and peace deals, first phase to start taking shape, what role do you think civil society can continue to do so that Gaza's people and Palestinian people can be safe and they can have their own maybe government?
So first, we're not here to save Gaza, and I will say it the other way. I think Gaza saved us because we've been really silent and we're watching the inhuman treatments of so many people, and Gaza raised our humanity back. And now we really feel like acting to have a better world and a more human world. And I do believe there's a lot to be done, and the flotilla, the mission, is just one mission among many other actions, and we were a team. We were working as a team with everyone on land and with all the other associations and all other citizens that were working on that for so many years already. For me, the easiest action to be done is a boycott. If we stop financing the genocide by buying some Coca-Cola or what do I know brands that are financing the genocide, we will already put pressure on the genocide. So there's like some good movement like the BDS to boycott the brands that are financing the genocide. The second thing for me is to put pressure on our governments, because they should be the one who should make responsible, we should make respected the international law. And that's really important. And we've been seeing that in Italy and Greece, as they put so much pressure in Italy, that we had 2 military boats that were accompanying, surveying our flotilla, because we got attacked in the middle of the sea by Israel, and the Italians blocked completely the country with a general strike, so that the government was forced to put military ships to protect us. And last thing, I would say there is also a fight to be done, ideological fight, because we see now with Zionism that they think they are the chosen people. As us chosen people, their law are above all other laws. And this is not normal. This is not an ideology that we would like to have in this world. And Zionism is not only in Israel, it's in all our countries. So we have to educate ourselves and talk to others and educate others, so that we can make a society together and fight Zionism, because this is really, really important. So there's many other things we could do, but those 3 points for me are crucial.
Wow, Adrian, that is very refreshing to hear. Thank you for sharing that. And finally, looking ahead, what do you hope for the future of Gaza and for the broader movement for peace and human dignity in the region?
As I said, I really hope people from all over the world can raise, and I've been seeing that already with this flotilla. I've seen so much humanity in all the people who participated. We were more than 500, and within 2 months we raised a flotilla, which is super complex logistically. We had to buy the boats, we have to train the people, we have to coordinate with so many different countries, cultures, and to make this action possible. But we made it in 2 months. So now it's quite clear that we are unstoppable, and I really wish this world to raise as international solidarity to end the oppression of Israel and of, at least at the Zionist entity, and of Trump. And so we could live in a better world, and also not just stop to Gaza. There are other struggles in all over the world. And I really hope and wish that this international movement that has been now starting will not end and will continue to grow from all over the world.
Thank you very much, Adrian, for joining us and sharing that insight and lending your voice here at NewsX World. Now we move on and we stay in this topic. There are more reactions coming in from world leaders over the agreed first phase of the Gaza peace plan. After Saudi Arabia, the UAE has also welcomed the Gaza agreement. President Trump had earlier appreciated the role played by the mediators and the neighboring states of Israel. One of the mediators, Egypt, has also issued a statement. In the statement, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has stated that the world is witnessing a historic moment, while highlighting that the peace plan is a triumph of the will for peace over the logic of war. He has also expressed optimism over the end of 2 years of suffering in Gaza. Now we move on to our next news. Russian Defense Ministry has said that Russian forces struck port facilities, energy infrastructure, fuel storage used by Ukrainian military. Meanwhile, a huge fire erupted at a Lukoil Korobkovsky gas processing plant in southern Russia after a drone attack occurred overnight. Russia's defense ministry has reported that its air defense forces downed 19 Ukrainian UAVs, including 9 at the Volgograd region, located about 600 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. Volgograd Governor Andriy Bosharov has stated that the drone strike damaged several boiler houses and sparked fires at energy facilities. The Korobkovsky plant, the largest gas processor in Russia's southern federal district, has a capacity of 450 million cubic meters per year. Much of its output, including liquefied gases and stabilized gasoline, is exported. Now for this discussion, we're joined by Mark Sutherland. He's a geopolitical commentator, joins us live from London. Thank you very much, Mark, for joining us again. Good to see you. Mark, we are seeing a significant shift or a significant moment about the peace plan that is to take effect soon about Gaza and Israel. Do you think if the world comes together and stands behind Ukraine or Russia, do you think this kind of peace plan do you think this kind of thing can be achieved for Ukraine and Russia as well?
Ashima, good to be with you. Well, we saw over a month ago, where President Trump had met President Putin in Alaska. Remember that there had been under the Biden regime, there had been no effort to reach out to Putin after the Russian invasion in February 2022. That discussion happened. We have to go back to the first Trump administration. And as Donald Trump has constantly said, I have a relationship with Putin. We don't go back to the accusations of Russia, and Trump is in the pocket of Vladimir Putin, which he is not, and all this. Why do I say this? Is because Donald Trump, I believe, is a little bit exasperated by this. When you talk about in regard to Gaza, the war that Hamas started from Gaza against Israel on the 7th of October 2023, yes, he has a very keen personal involvement in that as soon as he came in to work hard to get the hostages out and to end that war. We could come to that. But in regard to Russia, Ukraine, we have a theater of war. Russia invaded. The European countries are looking at how to step up their GDP increase in regard to spending on military hardware. This theater of war has continued, sadly, since 2022, and until then, Trump coming on the scene in the second administration, you would then see a genuine, I need to reach out to Putin. Sadly, he thought that he could solve this in a number of days, in only the way that President Trump then talks about that. But credit has to be given, because he has tried to then have this conversation. We've seen Zelensky in there as well. When you say if the world all came together, well, I'm not going to start singing John Lennon's song, Imagine. But the key is this: is that the war, we all want that war to stop, but at the moment we cannot see any sight of that, especially when there could be Tomahawk missiles going into the situation. There are far more than resources that then will then be given to Ukraine. This has already cost billions of dollars, billions of euros. Have to remember that the European countries economically, they are on their backs. They're not in a good place whatsoever, and particularly within the UK where I sit, and when there are the needs of the population. So we need people to come to the table. We need this to stop. Remember, the Russians have lost a million men. That doesn't seem to bother them, but it should be bothering, and I'm sure it does, the Russian citizens in there to say, where are our sons? Where are they? We also, as I was talking earlier, Korea has lost quite a few soldiers. North Korea in that region as well, as they even announced, you know, their full support for Russia. So sides even more. There is even more countries involved in who is buying fuel from Russia, whether that's via shadow fleets, and respectfully, whether that's India continuing to buy fuel and then sell it on the open market, and then you've got European countries that are also still buying fuel without announcing it too loudly. There are a lot of players, and people just have to make a decision. Are we going to stop this, or are we not? Or does it just benefit our military-industrial complex, even though no one has promised to put boots on the ground yet, or maybe that will happen, and then it escalates it even more. Because if then the European countries then find that their soldiers are actually getting killed in that theatre of war, then that also has other pressure in regard to the voting public in those countries on them. I painted an arc, Asima, that in many ways is complex. We've just seen, of course, other attacks on the Ukrainian infrastructure, and vice versa. It's continuing. It's tit for tat, as we would say, and two sides facing off. We have got Russia has taken nearly 20% of the land there. It's complex. We want people to come to the table and to stop this. But as President Putin, in his 73rd birthday address, has said, this is going to carry on, and that looks as though that is the situation that we are in.
And
Asuma.
Mark, so today we heard from President Zelensky that, you know, U.S. and Russia are very far away in terms of aligning about this. It does seem like U.S. is not as maybe enthusiastic, or it has a lot on their own plate as well now that the government is shut down, etc., etc. So do you think there is any other country that can bring them together and to talk and negotiate peace between them?
American administration, Donald Trump has taken the lead on this. He's taken the lead on this is because no one else was doing it since February 2022, in his view. That under the Biden administration, without going over Burisma, the Hunter Biden laptop and all that, which is real, and also those relationships in there from the Democratic Party, that no one was actually dealing with this. And that is why Donald Trump has led the way on this and has been frustrated by this. Things will continue despite the government shutdowns and the fact that the Democrats have decided to go with their lunatic left-wing fringe and not negotiate a deal and actually put the American people first. But as I say, America has been leading this, but also America is very concerned because they want the war that Hamas started with Israel to end. We want all the hostages out. They've been working hard on this. They also want the Ukraine-Russia war to stop after this invasion, because America has the big concern that they have is to look to China. They see China, as I said earlier on the channel, China as their threat against the hegemony of America, against America being number one economically. And they see that as a threat. They've had 4 years of the Biden regime where 11 to potentially 50 million illegal aliens have come over the border. That's why they are dealing with all the internal disruptions that are happening within America. This is an ideological fight, and I could say respectfully, if we would need ours, that is going across the world, where it's looking at tyranny building in various countries, and I would even say over the control of UK citizens over here. They end up going down this whole road of digital ID. There is so many things to play for that is actually going on, but in America, they know who their number one enemy is, and that is China.
Yes.
Asuma.
Thank you very much, Mark, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we come back to India. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that 9 British universities will open campuses in India after talks with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who is visiting currently and is in India now. Modi and Keir Starmer have held a delegation-level meeting in Mumbai. Prime Minister Modi has said that India-UK relations have seen significant progress, highlighting the historic trade agreement signed in July. Meanwhile, the British Prime Minister has announced that more British universities will open campuses in India supporting Vision 2035. Let's listen into what the British Prime Minister has said.
The demand for the best quality higher education is very high. So I'm really pleased that we're announcing today that more British universities will be setting up campuses right here in India, making Britain India's leading international provider of higher education and delivering on our Vision 2035.
Now for this discussion, we go back to Mark Sutherland. He's a geopolitical commentator, joins us live from London. Thank you very much, Mark, for staying with us. Now, so far, what do we know about these key objectives of British Prime Minister's trade mission to India, and how might this recently signed trade deal impact UK-India relations?
Well, if you go on the UK government website, which I just have, because it's to talk about all this in regard to then getting universities to build more campuses in India. They're saying that for the UK, it brings in £50 million. Well, we need far more than that with the state of the economy over here at the moment, especially when we're giving money away and our territory away in regard to the Chagos Islands. But I'll try not to be too cynical. The key is this, is that any relationship like this, and our relationship with India, is deeply important. You only have to traditionally go back to the ground floor of the Foreign Office in Charles Street in London and look at and awe at the marble and the history that's there in regard to our historical involvement within India. We have those links, we have those historical links, and that's good. However, the key, I think in India, you have a demand where you've got 40 million students in university. You would like that to grow to maybe 75 million of young people going to university. Education, of course, that's important. But what's more important is what people are actually learning within those education establishments. And there is an opportunity, as universities are then taking, to put on a campus that I don't know what the cost of those fees will be, because universities have made a heck of a lot of money over here through international students. In certain cases, that may have even kept them going. But it is about, and I would say this to dear India, look at the education standards. You have a huge growing tech base with all the skills that you have there. And that is something that you need, economically, and that you can build on. So, but relationships, yes, we all need that trade. The UK more than most needs that trade. Remember that we voted to leave the European Union. We're not part of the single market, even if the Prime Minister of this country just basically wants to take us back in, if not already done so, but not in name only in doing that. So good to see him out there saying, right, we've got trade deals. We need far more money than that coming into the UK. But any of these kind of relationships, they are important. Assume.
Yes, and now you've also touched upon the historical context for a little bit, but given the deep and lasting impact of British colonial rule on India's economy as well as educational system, how do you think how do you respond, or how do you think the critics will respond to these initiatives like British education system continuing in India and opening more university campuses? Is this a form of continued influence rather than a genuine partnership?
I'm trying not to smile too much at that last question, which I think is a very good question, Asuma, because it opens so much of a discussion. Universities, you could always say no. In India could always say no and say no, we don't want any more British campuses opening here, etc. But it looks like you are then not saying no. They turn around and say is to provide a service. It will be up to Indian education authorities to look at what's being taught and how that can benefit in India with the billions of people that you have living there, and in regard to the economy, in regard to your entrepreneurial spirit, in regard to many Indians then running their own businesses and wanting to increase that, and then wanting those exports to go around the world, and also as you are working hard to then give access to the internet and to technology along those lines to all the citizens of India, because there are many people that don't have that. So it will be up to you. It'll be up to you to keep the standards. It'll be up to you in regard to building those relationships in university to making sure that it actually benefits India and your economy. I'm just saying that.
Yes.
On the outside. The other discussion of colonialism, that's another interesting discussion, because I think we retreated there many years ago, and you are very much a power player and an up and coming economy. So, I take my hat off to you, which is a good thing. Plus, with other relationships that you're trying to build with others around the world, with other countries. So, education standards, yes, education's important, but it's what people are learning. That's the important thing. Asuma.
Yes. Thank you. And Mark, why do you think, from what we know, that Keir Starmer has ruled out including a visa deal in this UK trade agreement with India? So do you think the reason behind could be the political pressures at home that may be influencing his restrictive stance on immigration and visa policy?
Yes, I would say that yes, I think he's doing that. But personally, while you're worried about that, and it's easier to have a control on visas, then he should be turning around and looking at all the illegal immigration that's coming on over small boats over the channel. But I would say that, but I actually live here and are very concerned about that. I'm also concerned that this so-called political master is in many ways at times he'll be gaslighting, as far as I'm concerned, people in not taking certain issues far more seriously than he does. Because all they are then doing, like many Labour politicians, also, or other politicians in other parties, to be extremely fair, they are then looking for the 4-year cycle, right? And we need to get back in. Which people groups do we need to get back in? But also, we're also aware of tensions within the UK as well. How do we balance all of that? There is a lot in the air on that, Asuma, but you ask a very important question. It'd be very interesting to see how that develops as well. Like with all countries, at times they are then that's why countries call it the brain drain. They're then importing people in that they feel could help their economy to grow.
Yes.
Well, in regard to the UK, needs to have a very serious question in itself with the amount of people that are coming in illegally. Are they actually helping the economy of this country, and also legally as well? but there are a lot of pressures within the UK at the moment, and frankly, I don't think we're being a lot of people. A number of people who are then running, who are then got government positions, who are then in power, are not answering those honestly, in my humble opinion. Asuma.
And Mark, lastly, I would like to also bring in U.S. to this picture. Do you think U.S. Played any role, the U.S. tariffs, I mean, played any role, the disputes under President Trump influenced the finalization of this UK-India trade deal? Because it was, the discussions were going on for many years, but it was not sealed. What do you think?
Could be. You know that there's a huge tariff war. You're also very aware, because it's been discussed on your channel in regard to the visas into America from India, and then now the charges of that. I think it's a classic thing to say, but in many ways we don't know what conversations are going behind closed doors. What we do know is that the American president has used the tariffs because, as I've discussed here many times, he is wanting to get manufacturing and factories production back into America, wanting to get jobs back into America, and one of the stresses they've got to deal with is the fact that America has got a $37 trillion debt that we see, let alone all the derivatives, and being the world trade currency, that's what enables them to more deal with this in this fiat currency that world that we then live in. But yes, I think definitely the tariffs, this trade debate, war that some people would say, have had an influence in all countries who are making these decisions. We only have to look at the tariffs that the European has then put on our steel manufacturing as well. So there is a lot at play here.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Mark, for joining us and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you. That was our discussion with Mark Sutherland. Now, this is all we have time for.